everyone, and welcome to KSPB Pebble Beach, 9.9 FM. I am here interviewing my Aunt Natalie. Say hi to everyone, Natalie, if you would like.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, so let's get started with this interview. So we'll start off with, where are you from?
I'm from Porterville, California, but I currently live in San Francisco, California.
Nice. Okay, so what made you want to join the Peace Corps?
What made me want to join the Peace Corps? I got the opportunity to travel when I was in college down to Costa Rica in Central America, and I realized I really enjoyed a volunteer experience that I got to have down there. And when I came back to finish my college years, I realized that I wanted to do more service work, and so the Peace Corps seemed like the best, most well-suited opportunity to do so. So that's kind of what guided me in that direction.
Nice. If you had to give me your main takeaways from the Peace Corps, what would that be? What role has it played in shaping you into the person you are today?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's played probably a very profound role in shaping me into who I am today, because shortly following, so in the Peace Corps, there was a unique program that was kind of new and cutting edge right when I actually started into the Peace Corps. So it was called the Masters International Program. So in the Peace Corps, you have to first complete university, and then you can apply to be in the Peace Corps. And this was a new program where you could actually apply to go into the Peace Corps in conjunction with your master's education. So, and with that program, depended on the university, there were several different universities that were actually engaged in the program. I think there was only a handful, maybe 6 or 7 at the time. And each university had a different, a different probably criteria or they would have with the Peace Corps. But for example, my university, which was George Washington University, it offered, if I got into the Peace Corps simultaneously while I also got into my master's university, they would give me a scholarship essentially to complete several units of my education. So I could do my master's thesis while I was in the Peace Corps, and I could complete my master's at an accelerated pace. And then the Peace Corps would provide the opportunity and field work for my thesis education, and the George Washington University would pick up the bill for part of my units. So it seemed very comparable. Instead of going in and just doing service and then deferring loans, I was kind of getting something back as well with my education in another way. So that was really exciting and a unique opportunity. And so with that, how it shaped me, I used my master's education to kind of guide what I wanted to do in the Peace Corps. So I ended up becoming a health volunteer. And I realized I was well suited for that. And then I really enjoyed the whole experience of being in service and working with different populations and language and culture. And so it has guided my life. And so that I've consistently stayed in the nonprofit world and international development work, and lived the majority of my adult life abroad now, working for various organizations.
Nice. So kind of adding on to that, could you walk me through a normal day in the life of working in the Peace Corps? What did that entail?
Well, that's a good question. It's probably very different now.
Yeah.
Because technology and the world has evolved. Yeah. Yeah. And then now I know they haven't, so with COVID, most of this, in fact, the Peace Corps not to terminate, but it stopped service in all countries. But they have the country program officers that are there, the country directors, but none of the volunteers are in place. So normal day for me, which I was in the service in 2004 to 2006. So a number of years ago. And I was in a rural area. So it depended on what kind of volunteer you were, if you were placed in a city environment or a rural environment. So I was in a rural community up in the hills in Honduras. And so a normal day for me, I was a health volunteer. So I had a counterpart at the local health post. And my community was a community that had a number of aldeas. So there was like a community health center, and then there were community health posts that only were housed by roaming nurses. But my health center had a doctor that would come in every once in a while, and so she was my counterpart, and I would go to the health center and I would give educational talks on various different health needs that she felt was important for the population. And then I would also walk with the nurses up to the different health posts in the area, and we would do vaccinations with children. I would do health talks with various parents in those communities. I would go to the school and do health education talks. And then I would also attend a lot of the community meetings to hear if there were any health needs that they felt were important beyond what the doctor deemed was essential. And one thing that bubbled to the surface during these community meetings is there was a lot of upper respiratory infections. The community felt was a big problem because they had houses that didn't have chimneys in them. And so when they would burn and cook on their stoves inside their one-room, single-room homes, there was a lot, the smoke would stay inside. And so they wanted to figure out a way to get the smoke out so that their kids wouldn't have a lot of cases of pneumonia, which was a big issue. So I helped coordinate finding some funding for them with the different local organizations. And then helped mobilize them. So another part of my day would be like just mobilizing various other projects. So in these community meetings, finding out what was necessary, connecting them to the resources, and then getting those projects off the ground, and then doing a few, like meeting with other organizations outside of the community and seeing if they would be interested in coming in and doing educational talks or connecting with my community to see if there was ways of linking those resources together. So an average day, it differed a lot.
I mean, I'm sure you never really had like an average day too. I'm sure there's something.
There were some days where there was a lot. It was more important, and that's the interesting thing. You kind of have to adapt to culture, and I think that was what is really hard as an American, because we're really driven in society to be like productive, and you must be able to have a deliverable, and you have to have all these things to produce at the end of the day. And there's a big part of the Peace Corps that's all about a cross-cultural experience and really learning to slow down and take time to understand people and have a cultural exchange. And so some days were more of like playing with the kids on the street and getting to know what's going on in their lives and getting to know all of the people down through the other communities and what's interesting to them, and share what American culture is compared to what Honduran culture was. And so there is that important exchange, so that we're not so divisive as a world. We're actually much more of a community, a global community. And that's a really big piece of what Peace Corps is about, rather than just doing lots of projects. There is a lot of, community building. Yeah,
nice. I mean, kind of adding on to that, do you have like a specific moment that you're most proud of, like during your time in the Peace Corps?
That's funny. I think that one of the projects that I was actually most proud of was that one project that came about with the chimeneas, which was the cook stoves with the chimneys. And it was something that I was proud of because it was so off my radar, and there's a certain portfolio of projects that you're supposed to the government has deemed like these are important for the community and you should be trying to work on that. And that was really the education pieces and coordinating work with various different health initiatives they thought were important for that area. And this one just kind of bubbled to the surface that was out of the blue. And I felt really proud because I had to help find the money for it. And then I was working with a group. Typically, I was mainly working with the women previously, and this was working with all the men in the community. And so it was a different gender dynamic and a learning experience for me. And it was really successful to the point where there was other communities that wanted to join the project, and it expanded, and it became something that rather than me doing the work, they took ownership of it. And so they were the ones that actually taught the other communities on how to do this construction and improve the situation and find sustainable funding. So I was really excited that kind of took a life of its own.
Nice. And then like before you went to Honduras, was there a specific training or something that you had to go through before you went? I mean, I've assumed
there's multiple different. So once you're accepted, you go through, you get all your physicals done, and then there's a group, you all go as a group, and there you go to a staging process. And so there's usually a staging of 1 to 3 days in the United States. So you'll go to for my example, mine was in Florida, and we as a group were staged in Florida, where we were giving a lot of the briefings and made sure everything was up to speed, and given some criteria to go through. And then we were all flown to a specific region in the country, which was just outside of the capital, and we had 3 months of training, and that training was in 3 different components. So there was a cultural component, so we had to learn a lot about the Honduran culture at that time, and then we had a language component, so we had language classes, and then whatever our specialty or whatever our specific project area, because there was a group of volunteers that came in, some as health, some as water and sanitation, so mainly engineers or people with an education and construction and math and science. They would be in that capacity, and then there was a youth education component, and so there was one more, a project on community development. So depending on what your criteria was that you were going to work in, then you would have a training that was focused on that. And so yeah, 3 months of that.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of training and preparation must go in for like a 2-year.
Yeah. So then you have a 2-year service after it. Yeah, it was a lot of training, but it felt fast at the time, like the training part, because we were learning so much, and then you're also developing friendships with people that you wouldn't normally have been brought together with. So that was kind of fun. And then during the training, you're housed in a home with a family, a local Honduran family. So you get to really learn a lot more, a rich piece of the culture as well, outside of just being in these training facilities.
Nice. And then last question I have here is, would you recommend the Peace Corps to like the youth today?
Oh yeah, I think it was the best. It was such a great experience for so many reasons. I think it was just a very rich experience for me for personal growth. I mean, I think everyone can kind of say that. And because there's so much you learn about yourself when you kind of strip yourself of all the familiar things that you know and all the comforts that you're used to. You learn a lot about what your strengths and weaknesses are and how you can really improve upon them, and how and where you want to go with your own life. So I think personally, it's a fantastic journey for people to embark on. I also think professionally, if people are interested in international development or health or any kind of diplomacy, it's such a great and rich experience that can offer you a lot of perspective on what is out there in the world, and how to form bridges for communication and development and economics and all different kinds of areas of work. So I think, I'd even love to do it again, just because I think it is such a great experience, and I'd love for my kids to be able to see that kind of a world where, we can all coexist in a really peaceful and great way.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time. I really enjoyed our interview, and I hope you did as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I always love talking to you. It's not every day your nephew gets to interview you.
Well, once again, you're listening to KSPB Pebble Beach 90.9 FM.